Senator Dolan has a rich history of serving his community. Before becoming senator, he was an active board member of the Greater Cleveland chapter of the American Red Cross, the Cleveland Museum of Natural History, Life Act, the Rio Grande University Board of Trustees, and the Cleveland Indians Charities. He is also part owner of the Cleveland Indians. His community involvement also extends to the education sector. He has been an adjunct professor at the Case Western Reserve School of Law and Kent State University's Geauga campus. Oh my God. Former chief assistant for Geauga County, as well as the assistant attorney general for the state of Ohio. Senator Dolan was instrumental in the passing of the blockchain legislation for Ohio as well. He was also important in supporting the state of Ohio grant that Western Reserve Area Agency received last year. And now I would like to introduce.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you. We're going to do this in a little bit of a question and answer format, but I think before we get to that, I'm going to make some remarks. And my remarks are going to be rather simple, and they're really going to be to say thank you. Thank you to each and every one of you, because you know, too often politicians / public servants are the ones like me who stand in front of you, and we get to listen to a long introduction that I wrote at some point in my career because somebody asked me for it. And we get the attention and the credit. But I'm looking around the room today of real public servants, because what I do down in Columbus is really more theoretical, maybe even aspirational. And that is, we want to put together a budget, state policy, state laws that impact in a positive way people's lives. And in this case, we want to impact the elderly. And yet, what I do down there is mostly pushing paper. It's, can we fund this? Should we fund that? Can we afford this? We need to find money for that. But it's each one of you on a daily basis who are directly impacting the quality of life, who are exercising due diligence every day to make sure someone has a meal, somebody finds a place to live, that somebody finds the medical care that they need. That as individuals who have given so much throughout their lives, as they enter the golden era of their life, you are making sure that they're maintaining a quality of life. And so to me, you are the true servants of the public. So for that, I thank you. And as we move into next term, and we begin with a new administration, and we put together a new budget, it's your work, it's your efforts, and it's your input that I'm going to get today, and I've gotten over the years from folks like June Taylor and Rob Frost and Dora Pruce, people who represent you daily down in Columbus, that I will take and put into the budget to make sure that you have the tools and the resources to be the true public servants. So one of the questions, I'm going to jump ahead here real quick, one of the questions that's going to be asked of me is, what's the leadership style that I have? And to me, growing up with two parents who raised 6 kids, my father went to law school, went in the Marines, and then became a lawyer and did all kinds of wonderful things, building up not just his law practice, but then got into the business world and became, had some success. And I have a mother who, when I joined in the 9th grade in high school, she joined law school. And so throughout my 4 years of high school, she went to law school. And so a mother of 6, obviously raising 6 kids and going to law school. If any of you have teenagers, which I have 2 right now, you know that they never appreciate what you do as parents. I am guilty as charged until I went to law school myself. And then I realized, holy smokes, my mom did all of this and somehow managed to show up at my basketball games or football games or baseball games whenever we played. So it's that idea of compassion, of service. But it was what was really important that they learned to me was two things. One is that my dad said, why did he want to be a lawyer? He said, because every meeting begins with, how can I help you? And my mom's advice to me was, make sure that you spend most of your day listening to what others have to say. And she would say, make sure you spend your day listening for what God wants you to do, but make sure you listen to others, because sometimes God is speaking through others. And so that developed my leadership style. What can I do to help, and and make sure I listen? Because I know what my goals are. I know what my passions I bring to Columbus. I want to make Cleveland, Northeastern Ohio, a great place to live, great place to work, where you can get affordable jobs, where you can get health care, where you can raise a family, where you can retire, where there's all kinds of cultural and arts and sports that you can enjoy. And so that's the passion that I bring. But I also have to recognize that other people bring different passions to the job. And so I have to, in order to achieve my goal, in order to make sure that I provide the tools and resources necessary for you to do your job, I have to understand what others want to accomplish. And we are really blessed in Ohio because we are a diverse state, incredibly diverse state. We are diverse in population, we are diverse in religion, we are diverse in geographic, but that diversity brings challenges. And a lot of talk, on the news and when we talk politics is always, are we a Republican state or are we a Democratic state? Well, I'm a Republican. And I'm here to tell you that while that is partially true, the concern I have for all of us is that we are becoming a urban, suburban versus rural state. And that means the challenges that you are seeing each and every day in the 5 counties that you represent are sometimes not the same challenges that the rural communities are having. So when I try to advocate on behalf of resources that we need up here in Northeastern Ohio because the challenges and opportunities are so great, it's sometimes met on deaf ears because, in a smaller county, we already handle that. We can do that just fine. You don't need additional dollars. You don't need additional workers. And that is a challenge. And I will give you the cleanest example, what you're going to see in the next 6 months, that will really define the challenges we face in Ohio. As I said, I'm a Republican. I represent the 24th Senate District, which is the outer ring suburbs of Cuyahoga County. So my district is entirely within Cuyahoga County. In 2016, I was fortunate enough to win the votes of the constituents. Our President, Donald Trump, lost my district. This past election cycle, our Governor-elect DeWine lost my district. So I represent a district that votes Republican and votes Democrat. So the quality of your campaign, the effort you put forward, and what you do as a public servant is really important to my district. And so here's an example of what I will face in Columbus representing you down in Cuyahoga County. There's going to be a push through our next budget to provide a waiver for some folks who receive Medicaid benefits to have a workforce requirement. Now, some people might say, oh, that's a terrible idea, and some people might say, well, that's a great idea. And that tends to fall between party lines. I happen to like the idea. With certain requirements, I think the idea is to make sure that we have people working, receiving the benefits necessary to maintain proper health, but set your goals to rise above and provide a job and get a job that's free from government assistance. But at the same time, I am arguing to no avail, but I'm keeping fighting, is that if we're going to require Medicaid recipients to have a workforce requirement, we better make sure that they have a way to get to work and a way to get to health care or a way to get to education. And that in suburban, urban areas means we need to invest in public transportation. And so here I fight arguing in a Republican principle that we need to have Medicaid workforce, and, quote, a democratic principle that we want public transportation. And who am I fighting with? I'm fighting with my fellow Republicans in rural areas who don't understand the importance of government, state, your taxpayer dollars, my tax dollars, investing in public transportation. So that's an example where the rural versus urban, suburban will play out. We have opportunities and challenges that are entirely different. I need to make sure that I listen to what the rural communities need and see if there's a way we can advocate, but also understand that I need to fight for what we need to provide all the things that I want. Great life, great job, great schools, great place to have entertainment, and a great place to raise a family. All that is what we need to argue for from an urban, suburban viewpoint, not necessarily a Democrat-Republican viewpoint. So we're going to have a few questions here in a second, but I do want to end my remarks by again saying thank you. Because a lot of us in public service, politics, talk about one of the reasons we entered is to make a difference. And I, too, want to make a difference. But I also want to congratulate and thank each one of you, because on a daily basis, you are making a difference for individuals in our 5-county area to make their lives a little better. And so I thank you. I wish you Merry Christmas. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I look forward to questions and answers from both you and from the staff. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Dolan. And now I want to open it up to questions from the audience.
Thank you for being here.
Sure.
I have 2 questions, and they're real quick. One of the problems of our seniors and our population is that mass transit is very expensive for them to take on a daily basis. It's always going up. I have no idea about this health line, but is there a way that you could speak on their behalf to get RTA, and I know there was probably 2 different separate proponents, that they could lower the rate or make discounted, and I mean really discounted, population. My second question is, it's so nice of you to be here. Could you have like a raw for your lodge for discount people to see the Indians? Because, you know, I would like to be in one of your lodges, okay? So consider us.
Is this on?
Answering both.
All right, well, is this on? Everybody hear me? This is on? Okay, so given the reaction to the second question, I hope everyone's heard. I think everyone heard both of the questions. All right, so the first question kind of dovetails with what I just said, the idea that RTA, you know, maybe could lower the cost. Well, there's 2 issues here that I'm fighting with. One is, you know, Ohio right now, out of 50 states, is 44th in the country in terms of state direct investment to public transportation. So on one end, it's hard to tell RTA, oh, you need to lower your prices because seniors and folks can't use it, when they're saying to us, well, geez, help us, invest in us, allow us to be more, allow us to have more government dollars to do this. So that's number one, and that is a fight I've had. I managed to win a small battle in the last budget. I'm looking forward to winning a bigger battle this budget. We do have an administration who understands it, so I was actually with them last night, and I told them, you're going to be hearing from me on a number of issues. One of them is public transportation. Now, the other thing is more local, is that, and I have said this to RTA officials, so I'm not breaking any news here or speaking behind anyone's back. RTA needs to catch up with the times. Now, they had some internal struggles that they need to work out. You know, and every government agency is just, we've got to root all those problems out. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the idea of how public transportation works these days. It needs to work exactly how private transportation works. And that is, any one of us right now can get on our phones and have someone come and pick us up and take us somewhere. Well, that does cost money, and you have to have at least a credit card to be able to do that. But public transportation needs to do that. Needs to make sure that they're more flexible and on-demand transportation. Recognizing that, who are your customers? Are we taking seniors to healthcare? Are we taking people to work? And what time are they going to work? Where are they going to work? And the example there would be RTA. I'm going to pick on RTA, but it's true in every municipality throughout the state. The idea of public transportation was, let's have a system, whether it be train, whether it be bus, where we bring people from outside the city in the morning and bring them into the city. They do their work, and at the end of the day, we bring them back out. Sounds good? But time has passed that by. Because in Cuyahoga County, most of the skilled workforce job openings are in the outer ring suburbs now. Dolan, Strongsville, Westlake. But guess who hasn't adapted? RTA. We're still in that same model where you can get downtown, no problem. But if you live downtown or an inner ring suburb and want to work in Dolan or Westlake or Strongsville, you can't get there. Right now there's one bus that leaves downtown Cleveland to go to Dolan, and it takes 90 minutes to get there. So I got to address the second question real quick. So the second question is, can we discount our loges? Well, our loge. Oh, all right. Yeah. Well, I can tell you this. I can tell you. No. Hang on. So we don't offer our loge, my family's loge, for sale. What we do, however, is offer it for raffles in order for groups like WRA to raise money. So I will tell you right now, if you have a party where there is a raffle, we will donate the use of our loge to that raffle for you to raise money for WRA. All right. There was a question over here.
Well, I heard you say that you're having problems with rural areas, as far as transportation. I do know that Geauga County has, really excellent system to transport seniors. But maybe the approach would be we need aides to go to Geauga County. So we need transportation for the companies that may be, in certain areas to get providers to take care of the seniors in Geauga County and
Okay.
other rural counties.
Okay, that's a great idea, and we can flesh that out. I should be clear, I don't consider the 5 counties that we serve here at WRA as rural. I mean, I think I grew up in Geauga County, and there's certainly some rural areas in it, but there's an affinity to Cleveland in Geauga County, and Medina, and Portage, and Lake. And so when I say urban, suburban, I am thinking northeastern Ohio, versus when you go down to Claremont County or Darke County or Preble County. Those are really rural areas, and they're wonderful areas. So the issue isn't good or bad. The issue is what concerns they have versus what concerns we have. So those are issues that we can work out and talk to, and the state can help in that. But growing up in Geauga County, I never felt I was a rural person. I felt like I was part of the outer suburbs of Cleveland, really. So.
You didn't have a horse and buggy.
No, but I grew up on a dirt road. So over here, I think we have one.
I find that the issue is while Lake and Geauga County aren't rural, they still can't get transportation to the major hospitals downtown. So a lot of my folks go without care, don't follow up properly because of that issue. And the other side of that is getting providers out to that area, because a lot of the providers are in Cuyahoga and they don't want to go to Lake. They don't want to go to Geauga, and they don't have transportation to get there.
Well, so did everybody hear the concern that there isn't the transportation systems to be able to go from Geauga or Lake into Cuyahoga County? Again, I'm going to pick an RTA, but RTA stands for Regional Transit Authority, but we're not regional. So that's part of what I want to be able to work on, is that we are, to my answer to the last question, I mean, we are distinct in our counties, but we are unique in the fact that we are northeastern Ohio, and you know, we share a lot together. So that's something that I want RTA to get better at. So it's not just going to Strongsville, but it's going out to Mentor, and Mentor getting over to Cleveland Clinic and things like that. So those are the issues that we want to debate. So.
First of all, thank you very much for coming. We really
Sure.
appreciate it. I have an issue, though, with the 44 ranking. You know, we're top 10 ranking industrially in the United States. A lot of the dollars start in D.C. I assume that we're not 44th in the money that's coming from D.C. to Ohio. Is it a matching problem? I just, after living down south for 15 years, I was very surprised that Ohio was ranked 44th in the nation on transportation.
Yeah. So one of the reasons we're ranked 44th in the nation is that the way we fund Transportation Ohio is primarily through the implementation of a gas tax. And the gas tax in Ohio has not been raised in a number of years. And so obviously the amount of money coming through to the state to turn around and take care of transportation needs has diminished. So as a result of that, the decision was made that infrastructure is more important than public transportation. Now, I don't think in terms of more important or less important. I think they're all important. But obviously, if whether you're in a car or a bus, if you go over a bridge that's not stable, that's a problem. So the amount of money that we invest totally on transportation issues has dropped dramatically. So that's not only going to change because the gas tax is low, but less people are using gas for a variety of reasons. One is the cars that we use today are much more fuel efficient than the cars that we had 20 years ago and beyond. We are moving slowly but steadily towards non-gas use cars. For instance, a lot of the RTA buses don't use gas anymore. So that's not generating a lot of revenue. So we have that challenge of deciding, okay, where else can we look for revenue? Now, if you just simply say, let's raise the gas tax, which hasn't been raised in a long time, you'll get the political pushback. But I'm not sure long range that's the smart way to go because of all the reasons I just said, that there's going to be a diminishment. So we need to look at that. As it relates to public transportation, I joined the Senate in 2016, and I was fortunate enough to be in the House up until 2010. Well, in 2011, the Governor Kasich instituted a study, and because people were arguing about public transportation, and he said, well, let's study it. Government, the easiest thing to do is form a study committee. Well, they did. They had all the experts on it. It came out, and it said that Ohio was woefully underfunding public transportation. Well, that report has just sat on a shelf, and we have not acted on it at all. So, the need is prevalent. The embarrassment of being 44th is real. So I really hope that with this governor, we really are going to address that issue because, on a practical matter, I have nephews who are 26 and 24, and they don't want to drive. They don't want to drive. So whether it's Uber or public transportation, they don't care. So if we're going to be an attractive city for our youth to come and work here, we better meet their needs and demands. And it's not building more parking garages. It's making sure they can get to the ball game by taking a bus or a train or get to healthcare or work. Because they just, we're all relatively same age. I mean, we all couldn't wait to get our license. These kids are like, I'll let someone else do it. So, which is a problem in other areas.
Hi, I have a question. I'm Fatima Perkins, Director of Community Outreach and Advocacy. It was mentioned in your intro that you were involved with bringing blockchain to Ohio. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us how blockchain will impact nonprofits in general, like an area agency on aging, where you hear today our emphasis is on basic needs like access, transportation, food, in-home services, and things of that nature? Okay.
So the question was about blockchain and how it would impact your agency. So I was thrilled the question wasn't how does blockchain work? Because that would be equivalent to 20 years ago, someone standing up in front of you and saying, oh, this internet thing is going to be really great. I don't know how it works, but I know how it's going to be used. And so how blockchain is going to be used initially is going to be, it is a decentralized ledger system. So it is protective of your private information. So to the extent that any of your clients feel comfortable with technology, all of their information can now be transmitted through blockchain, whether it's healthcare, whether it's food, in order to make sure that the services are delivered. And really, its basic function is that there's no paperwork. That it is simply able to, you control all your information in one area, even though your information is not in one area. Let me give you an example. This doesn't really address the issue about WRA, but it gives you a sense of how it would work a little bit. So imagine if all your information is stored in this block. Everything. All your private information, all your healthcare records, which is what it is now. Blockchain slices that block up into 1 million little blocks. And so now all your information is decentralized, which means it's protected, which means only those pieces of information that you want to give out will be given out. Except when you, and only you or anyone you've authorized, wants to access that information, it comes together. And then it's spliced up. And how that's, let me just give you a real example of how that could be relevant in people's lives. And it's just a simple example to make you understand it. If you are a 22-year-old female and you want to go to a bar and you look like you're 16, so what do they say? What does the bouncer say to you? Hey, I need to see an ID. So what do you pull out? You pull out your driver's license. And what's on your driver's license? Your picture, your name, your address. And so now this bouncer says, oh, Jane Smith, I know Jane Smith lives 2 blocks down. I know she happens to be here. I can either, all the bad things you can think of happen. Well, now under blockchain, the only thing that bouncer needs to know is that person over the age of 21. And so they will pull out their phone and the bar will have some instrument. You'll register and it'll say, yes, Jane Smith's 21. But now imagine 5 hours later, there's a raid on that bar. And that bar will be able to show exactly how many people came through that door that night and how old each and every person was. Because everything is immediately stored. So if they come up to somebody and say, can I see where you got stamped in, or my word stamped in, they'll be able to show, yeah, I was here. If you can't show it, then you didn't, either they let you in legally or somehow you got in illegally. Another practical way blockchain is going to be used is everybody just followed the romaine lettuce scare? Okay, so blockchain will allow, you will be able to follow lettuce from the farm it grew on to the shelf. And why is that important? Because as a supermarket owner, you don't want to, oh gosh, there's a romaine lettuce scare from a farm out in California, but most of mine came from Texas. But the customer is not going to know that at all, so I got to pull all the lettuce off my shelf. You're going to be able to demonstrate that every piece of romaine lettuce that's on the shelf right now came from a farm different than where it was shown. So it allows the consumer to feel comfortable that they're buying safe product. It allows the supermarket to save money from not throwing away product. So those are just examples of how it's going to be used. You know your job better than I do. So any interactions you have and you need to follow through with it, blockchain will be helpful. I guarantee you 2 years from now, everything I said is going to be so elementary. And you guys are all going to understand how blockchain works without even knowing you're on the blockchain. That's how quickly this is going to happen.
Do we have any more questions on this?
And one way in the back over there.
Moving into the new budget cycle, what do you foresee as your biggest challenges and what are you trying to focus on?
Okay, the question is biggest challenges to the budget, what am I going to focus on? The biggest challenge to the budget is always making sure that our three biggest areas of budget is K through 12 education and higher education, Medicaid, and prisons and rehabilitation. That, what I just said, those three things make up about 88% of the state budget. So 88 cents of every dollar goes to those three areas. So the challenges are to make sure that we are effective in each one of those areas. And K through 12 brings a whole lot of issues. Some schools get a lot of money, some schools don't get a lot of money from the state, so they have to make it up with property taxes. You know, where our kids get educated is always an issue and where the money flows. K through 12, or the higher education issue, you know, is kind of relative to blockchain. You know, we want to tell June over at Cleveland State, hey, great, you need to go out and invest in degrees in the blockchain so that we become the leading area for kids to come and learn how to code in blockchain. But at the same time, the state government tells June, oh yeah, by the way, we want you to freeze your tuition. So you have no money to invest in this new area, and that we only pay 50% of the dollars that we support you upon graduation, which means you have 4 years of investment in a program that's not going to return any money. So how do you do it? So those are challenges we face there. Medicaid, I talked about some of the, you know, quickly, one of the areas we're going to look into is making sure that we have a system that's more efficient, more effective in the delivery of Medicaid services so that every dollar is being wisely spent. And then the prison system, of course, is overcrowded, and we have to deal with that. What I also am going to focus on to your second question is that there has been a complete erosion in this state between the local governments and the state governments. And how I open my remarks is by saying, you know, we're more aspirational and you guys are boots on the ground delivering the services. Well, that's a lot of cases between local and state government. We're aspirational. We tell them what to do, but we're cutting off a lot of their funds. We're cutting off a lot of their ability to be flexible, how to raise their money. So one of my main goals is to restore the partnership between local governments and state government, and to recognize that two things. We're all in it together. We all are making sure that our citizens have all the things that we've talked about this morning. And it's all our money. What drives me insane is sometimes listening in budget talks to somehow that the state tax dollar and the local tax dollar and the federal tax dollar have three different payer systems. It's all of our money. It's all of your tax dollars. So why do we cripple one over the other? So we want to make sure the biggest challenge is that we're not raising taxes at the local level, that we are working as a partnership to make sure the local level is administering the services that they need to administer to you know, have a helpful, productive economy. I think there was one way in the back.
Hi, good morning. I'm Terry Foster. I'm the director of the ADRC at the Area Agency on Aging, and I have more of a comment and maybe a suggestion than a question. So I think everyone in this room, we all understand the importance of the waiver programs and how ultimately it not only improves quality of life, but it ultimately saves in the long term health care for these individuals. We're able to get these folks meals, we're able to get these folks transportation, but it's those people who don't meet the Medicaid eligibility who kind of fall through the cracks and end up ultimately costing the healthcare system more. And Dr. Beach talks all the time about food insecurity and the importance of that hot meal, and it kind of perplexes me that someone can get an MRI on a Saturday afternoon, but they can't get a meal after they've been discharged from the hospital. And so what that leads me to start thinking about is, for example, the sin tax in Cuyahoga County, the $15 million approximately that it raises every year. Has the legislature ever thought about implementing some type of sin tax to generate revenues to provide, say, a standard 2-week meal to someone over the age of 65, certain diagnoses? Because it's so important not only for overall health, but for the healing process, making sure you get that nutrition, that hydration, that protein.
So, no, I can't say that we've ever thought of raising the sin tax for that particular purpose. Again, our job is to make sure that we are responding to what the folks on the ground are doing. And so I recognize in Cuyahoga County that in other areas in the state, there is food insecurity. And we have a responsibility to do that. And simply providing additional dollars to Harvest for Hunger is one way, but it's also to make sure that you guys are administering meals on a regular basis. So it is prioritizing how we spend our tax dollars in relation to the last question on the budget. Raising, one of the reasons you wouldn't want to raise the sin tax is that the sin tax revenue is going down every year. And that's a good thing. That means less people are smoking, less people are buying the higher alcohol. So that's a good thing for the overall health and well-being of our state. But if you're trying to recognize that you are trying to perform a important government service on a declining revenue source, that seems to be a disconnect in trying to accomplish that goal. So, I mentioned some of your advocates. Starting now, we need to hear from you. We need to hear what you accomplish on a day-to-day, week basis. What are the needs? What are the potential fixes? Because if we don't hear from you, you get lost. And I know you're well represented. I know Doug has a good group representing you, but they can't come down too much. And what's important to me, I always say, if someone, like one of you, is taking a day off from work to come down and advocate, that means a lot. That means you are sacrificing yourself, because this is how important it is. Or when board members come down, and they don't have to be there. They're taking time away from their work to come down and advocate. You can't advocate too much. And just quickly, the budget process starts now, and that the new administration is starting to put it together, and it will go through June 30th. And there will be many, many changes throughout, and many opportunities to impact. So as you see the budget unfold and how it addresses the issues that we just talked about, and whether it does or does not, we need to know. You need to come down and say how many of your clients rely on public transportation to get to health care. Maybe your clients aren't the ones that are going into the workforce, but they still need to get to the hospital. That story needs to be told. And don't just go down and tell it to the people who agree with you. You need to tell it to the people who need to hear it and may not agree with you. And I cannot emphasize that enough, how important that is. I guarantee you that every interest in the state of Ohio has somebody working for you. So take advantage of that. Take advantage of it.
One more question?
So the question is, what are my thoughts on term limits? Term limits by themselves aren't working. Term limits with a robust redistricting process, I think that could work. By that I mean, right now in Ohio, the party that's in the majority gets to draw all the districts. And for the last 20 years, it's been the Republicans who've drawn the district. So as a result, we have districts that are designed pretty much that a Republican's going to win it or a Democrat's going to win it. And which means, forget whether they've been there 2 years or 20 years, to win that seat, you tend to have to win the primary vote. And the primary vote tends to bring out more of the extreme issues within the party. And then you have no incentive whatsoever to come to the middle when you get to Columbus or you go to Washington. Because in order to maintain your seat, you just have to keep the primary voter happy on both sides. And what redistricting is going to do, hopefully, is create more districts like the one I serve in, where it's pretty much 50-50. In fact, it's 48% Democrat. And I'm a Republican and I represent that district. The more seats you have like that, the more the general election matters. And when the general election matters, the more issues that you need to not only hold yourself accountable to during an election, but when you go down there, you got to fight for those issues to occur. And that may mean bucking the extreme of your party, whatever party, Democrat or Republican. You need to come together. How we're going to do that is that in 2022, the new elections will be drawn, new lines will be drawn, and the minority party, that is the party out of power, will now have a vote, and they have to vote for the plan. You have to have so many, you have to have at least 40%, 35% of the minority party vote for the plan. So it's not going to be designed to favor one party. It's going to be designed to create more compact and competitive seats. Therefore, it doesn't matter whether I stay 8 years or 20 years. What matters is every time I stand for election, I have to represent the district, and then the district gets to say no, yay or nay, and that will create, forget that the term limits are, the term limits are good in the sense that you don't get stale. They're bad in the sense that it takes a long time to learn how to do it, and a lot of guys and gals go down there and they know their clock's running, so they start looking at other offices. But again, you can only do that if you're comfortable that you're going to win the general election, if you know you're going to be here. If your goal is to serve and your district is more representative of the cross-section of the population, it's harder to start thinking, I'm going to be this in 4 years, because I better be able to answer to my constituents in 2 years. So,
And the other problem, of course, is as a ex-professional staffer, it makes a professional staff, they just change parties when the member changes. So you have too many professional staffers in places like Columbus, DC, who aren't at risk of losing their job, not working with their members. So, yeah, added thing. I know all of you feel what a dynamic leader Senator Dolan is, and how lucky we are to have him up here in Northeast Ohio. Let's give him a big. And second thing, we're trying to decide whether we're going to take a 12-person bus, a 16-person bus, or a 20-person bus down to Columbus when we visit, and we will be there, and we'll come to visit you in your office. Thank
Okay.
you very much for attending.
all right, thank you. Thank you, everybody.